To make you aware, this podcast will contain conversations around mental health and well-being and could include issues of a sensitive nature. This is a podcast from Torfaen Talks CIC.
Sometimes finding moments of stillness can feel impossible, but what if we told you that just a few minutes of mindfulness each day could transform your mental health, improve your focus, even strengthen your community? On this episode then, we're going to be shining a light on Mindfulness Wales, organisation dedicated to bringing the benefits of mindfulness to people, schools, workplaces and entire communities across the Principality. We'll explore how mindfulness can support mental well-being, hearing real-life stories of transformation and uncovering the science behind these powerful practices. Today we're going to be joined by Liz from Mindfulness Wales, who will share insights into the organisation's mission and how you can start integrating mindfulness into your own life. So, let's take a deep breath, settle in, let's get started. Liz, tell us more about Mindfulness Wales.
It goes back to 2019, maybe even a little bit earlier, when a group of us who had found mindfulness beneficial just thought, you know what, we've got something here. We know it's benefited us and we think there's a lot more going on. We think it could benefit other people. So a group of us, about 8 people, and in Wales we all know each other, in the mindfulness community, people know each other as well. We got together and we thought, how does this affect mindfulness, affect people in different sectors? And I was brought in as the education person because I'd been teaching mindfulness in schools by this time for a while. And there was health, and there was someone from the civil service and public service, there was someone from voluntary sector. So a whole load of people who had mindfulness at heart and thought we've got something to offer here, starting to talk about how it could make a difference more widely. And that led to a conference in November 2019, where we did a bit of a showcase. We talked about mindfulness and we got people in from all sorts of different walks of life. And there were some children there talking from my end, on the education end. There were some people, someone talked about how mindfulness had helped to give up smoking and how it had helped them in all sorts of different ways of their life. And this conference in Cardiff attracted about 140 people, most of whom were practicing mindfulness or mindfulness teachers. So we thought there's a big community here who are really committed to sharing mindfulness. And following that conference, it was such a lovely networking and supportive occasion that we thought, actually, do we need to formalise this? So a group of us that started all of this off got together and we turned Mindfulness Wales into a a charitable incorporated organisation, a CIO. And then COVID hit and we couldn't do anything. In terms of doing anything in person, we couldn't do anything. So we turned to using Zoom, which has just been our saviour over the last few years. And to start with, it was about supporting the mindfulness community, people who were already interested. So we started doing monthly talks online. And we've got a whole library of monthly talks that are on our website. Then we thought, in the last year or two, actually, we need to up our game here. We've been supporting the mindfulness community. We've been helping us up our game, supporting each other. So there's a good network being developed here, but actually, are we getting it out wider than people who are already interested? How are we sharing this? And I'm happy to talk a little bit about the difference it's made to my life. How can we share this? And our latest sort of project, if you like, is nurturing mindful communities. How can we weave mindfulness into our lives and our work and our everyday life? And that's where we got to Mindfulness Wales.
What about some of the core programmes or services that the Mindfulness Wales offer at the moment?
Well, that's interesting because it's not so much services or programmes as, I think, how would I describe it? Networking and influencing.
I'm with you. Okay.
The first thing is networking, and that is about supporting each other. What we realised when we had that 140 people in a room is that we're not doing something odd that you do sitting on a cushion in your house on your own. We've got something that lots and lots of people share, all sorts of walks of life. There were all sorts of services there, right from fire service, police, community, all sorts of people there who found mindfulness beneficial. So actually getting in a room together and saying, do you know what, this is not something woo-woo that's off at the side. This is something that affects all of our real lives, was really important. So it's that networking and supporting each other and really helping each other. It's normalising Do you know, it's not something odd that you do because you're weird. This is something that actually we can do in everyday life. It's not even something you have to do on a cushion. You know, you can do it anywhere. You can do it walking, standing, sitting, lying, in work, out of work, out in nature. That's especially lovely. So it's actually about networking and supporting each other on that. And then the influencing is, okay, if we've got something, this won't be for everybody, but if we've got something that's made a difference to our lives in all sorts of different ways, then maybe there are ways that we can share it. And that's where we're going at the moment. How can we work with, and yes, it'll be individuals, but actually, because we're a small organisation, there are 8 of us on the board. We've got, and we've got lives. So how is it that we can work with, maybe with organisations, maybe with groups of people, helping them to actually weave mindfulness, weaving mindfulness into life and work? How can we weave it into everyday life? So that's why we do what we do there. But coming back, there's something really about what it is and why we would do it that might be important. If you'd like me to just talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely, yeah.
I got into mindfulness because I thought, I used to listen to an app and do a few odd things there. And I really only started I did a mindfulness course because I found out that there was a program for schools. And in order to train to do the program for schools, you had to do a formal 8-week course. And I did it because I thought it would be good for somebody else. And what I didn't realise was how much good it would do for me. Absolutely profound effect on me. And the moment that I really realised what an effect it had on me, my husband died 9 years ago, and you go through all of the normal processes of grieving and things like that. And I just know that my mindfulness, the fact that I practiced mindfulness, had enabled me not to feel any less. Grief is the right thing to do in those circumstances, but just to be with it and even welcome it, to just say, this is normal, this is absolutely how things should be, and to actually deal with that in a different way to how I dealt with previous losses. I just know it had changed the way that I dealt with difficulty. That was what it did for me. It was an unexpected bonus. I thought I was helping. I got into this because I'm so distraught at what we're doing to the world and what my grandchildren are going to have to face and deal with. I thought, let's give them, kids some skills to help to deal with it. But that personal benefit was unexpected. So I think for me, mindfulness helps cope. And if you're not coping, nothing else happens. So it helps you cope. But it's much more than that. Lots of people think that's all it does, or you just do it because you're stressed. And it does help. But it also helps with feeling of belonging, that feeling of connection. There's something, isn't there? We need to be part of something, part of a group, whether it's a family, whether it's a group of people, whether it's an organisation like Torfaen Talks. There's something about feeling I belong here. I feel part of something that is a human need. And I think mindfulness just helps you to be with people. And then there's another one, I think this is about flourishing. This is not just about surviving, it's about actually we need to flourish, we need to survive. So there's things like trust, gratitude, appreciation, awe and wonder, just being out, looking up at the stars when you get out of the car, instead of rushing into the house, just having a moment, just looking, think, just look at that, goes on forever. And all of just that feeling, even remembering it, just has a little bit of a chemical effect in your body. It releases positive neurotransmitters. So there's the real richness, a physiological effect of just noticing these things, having these things. And then the last one I would say is it helps you to make better decisions. This ability to know how you're feeling, to recognise this is what's going on for me, whether it's grief or anger or frustration. Recognising that enables you just to take account of that when you make a decision, and that enhances your life, doesn't it? Just if I'd made a few better decisions previously in my life, a lot of things might have been different. But,
so how do you think mindfulness compares to other mental health practices?
I think it's probably part of a lot of things. It's not for everybody, and it's not a silver bullet. It's not going to solve everything. So I think as part of a whole tapestry of things, it's part of something that helps us to cope and survive and thrive, that helps us to do with all sorts of things. So it's probably part of a package. I wouldn't say it's necessarily better or worse, although The interesting thing is mindfulness can be prescribed under the clinical guidelines, and you can be referred to mindfulness because there is real evidence that it can prevent recurrence of depression, and it can be in lots of cases more effective than drugs for preventing. Depression is when you start going down that rabbit hole, and all of those thoughts start going on, and you start going down the rabbit hole there, and it can help you to recognize that and to stop going down that cycle into another depressive episode, because rumination and going back over those thoughts is at the heart of that, and it can be more effective than drugs, and so it's actually prescribed for that. And that's the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, and is prescribed, and you can be referred to that by your GP. And Anira and Bevan locally has got quite a lot of people who are trained to deliver that as part of that referral.
Earlier, talking about mindfulness in schools, why do you think it's important to introduce mindfulness to children and young people?
Because I think at heart it makes us nicer to each other. It's about responding and not reacting. It's about just recognizing what's going on for yourself and just taking a moment to pause and think about what you're going to do, what you're going to say. So I think, and understanding yourself helps you to understand other people. So I think there's a big thing in mindfulness about relationships and getting on with each other. And that has got to enhance young people's lives. And there are some other things as well, because it can help your attention. One of the things about mindfulness is about directing your attention. One of the formal definition, I don't know if I can remember the actual words, but it's about the awareness that you get from focusing your attention on purpose, on something that you've chosen with curiosity and kindness. So that might be focusing on your breath, focusing on your thoughts, but that training your mind for when it wanders, because your mind will wander. We talk about in the children's programs, we talk about your mind being like a puppy. It wanders around sniffing aimlessly. See if your mind, you think it's like your mind, Patrick. It wanders around sniffing aimlessly. You recognize that one? It brings you things you didn't want. Yeah, it won't stay where you want it to. Yeah, you try concentrating on something and see where your mind goes. And the other one is it just makes a mess. Our minds are wonderful. We are beautifully evolved species, but my goodness, we're complicated, aren't we? So do any of those resonate with you as being, this is how my mind works. It's just like a puppy.
Absolutely. So you're talking there about for the younger age groups, but what about mindfulness into the broader community development goals?
Everything I've just said about children applies to us as adults, doesn't it? And I'm going back to what mindfulness can do for us. It can help us cope. And oh my goodness, is there a lot for us to cope with at the moment, locally, within, just in relationships, in work. And then when you start moving out into, the economy and globally, there is just so much going on. If we could so easily be overwhelmed by anything at any level. So there's something about, okay, can we cope, get all of this into perspective? There's something about that. There's something about, okay, what's going on for me? And what can I do to be kind to myself? What do I need right now? And most of us, if we're honest, don't stop just to think about that. Or we reach for habitual things. Oh, I need a drink. Or whatever else. We don't really just say, okay, this is what's going on for me. This is what I need to be kind to myself, to help myself right now. So it's something about coping. And then that's the other thing. Then I talked about belonging. I'm going back over this, but it's so important, that feeling of belonging. This is something I do when I'm teaching there. If you start to think about a time where you didn't belong, when you felt really out of place, bring something to mind where you really felt out of your comfort zone, you didn't belong, you shouldn't, the feeling about you shouldn't be there. And I bet that your body is already reacting to that. And even as I'm talking about it, I can feel my chest getting a bit tight and my shoulders tightening up. Just that feeling of not belonging, not connecting with other people is really, really powerful. So if we can just recognize and help us to be connected, to feel part of something, to relax and be ourselves with other people, then that's really important. That's the strength of your social network is one of the strongest preventative factors against anxiety and depression. So that social network thing is really important. So that connection, and this connection with the planet and climate and all the rest of it as well, and with nature. And then there's that flourishing, that gratitude and trust. And we know that when we feel gratitude, then we release positive neurotransmitters. I've got lovely gratitude practice, 10-finger gratitude practice. I can send you a recording of it. And just doing that will release dopamine, serotonin and oxytocin into the system, and they are the antidote to adrenaline and cortisol, which cause the stress. So there's a real, chemical benefit to some of these more, these good things. Compassion, kindness. Being kind to someone makes us feel good as well as the person we're being kind to. So that's mindfulness is all about these, I would say, behaviors, attitudes, just ways to be, ways of living. And if all of that makes us make better decisions in our lives, then that's good, isn't it?
Absolutely. So we talked earlier about going to Zoom with the pandemic. Now, how has Mindfulness Wales adapted the programs for people with some limited digital access? Because obviously, in the pandemic, there wasn't any choice in the matter. But what kind of particular challenges are there in teaching mindfulness online versus in person, face to face?
It's not quite the same because there's something about being in a room with people, about that physical connection, isn't it? There's something about the electrical energy that we emit as people. I'm quite fascinated by this, that we're all standing in each other's electrical sort of areas. And if someone's got really jagged electrical energy, we're going to notice, aren't we, in a room? So it's something you don't get on Zoom. But, even in a Zoom room, you can establish a connection with a group of people. But that all depends on people having decent enough IT, internet links and all the rest of it to be able to access that. And that's, I think, what we are trying to do now with this nurturing mindful communities. 8 people can't reach many people. I mean, we get good attendance at our events, but we can't do that. But what we can do is help to link people so that, but other groups where you've already got access to communities, you've already got that group of people. How can we make mindfulness accessible so that it can be part of what you do when you are together? So that's what I meant about it's more of sort of influencers. It's not about us adapting programs, it's about helping people to be able to do the things in person, the people who are in communities. So what we're looking to do is to influence communities, and one of the people I've had discussions with recently is somebody who runs Mindfulness Wales. But what we're going to talk to them about is how we can work with their staff and the people who work with their carers, the people who work locally with carers in person. How can we empower them? How can we get them to be able to use mindfulness with people when they're in a room together? So it's really about spreading it out so that we are weaving it into people's life and work. Making it accessible as well. It doesn't always have to be a really hot and heavy 8-week course. Maybe there are ways we can do it.
What do you think some of the common challenges people face when they first start mindfulness?
Oh, the first challenge is, it's not for me. It's something only weird people do, and it's a bit woo-woo. So there's a barrier before you even start. So that's why I'm saying about, can we normalize it? Can we just make it normal that when we're together as a group, we just say, okay, we got a difficult decision to make here. Let's just take a moment. Let's just sit and breathe, really concentrate on the breath for a few moments, whatever it might be. Just check in with how it's landing with us, and that will help us to make better decisions. So it's something as simple as that. The next one is, I can't do it because when I try to focus my mind, it just gets busy. And I'm saying, that's okay, that's great, that's mindfulness. But if you're noticing that your mind is like a clogged up traffic jam trying to get out of Cardiff at 5 o'clock in the evening, if your mind's like that, then that's a good thing to notice, because you can just notice, this is busy. You don't have to make a judgment on it, but actually maybe, what can I do? And maybe it's a mindfulness practice, but just that noticing is really important. Yeah? Really just knowing how I feel. How often do we just carry on regardless and not stop to say, I'm really tense, or, my mind is going, like the worst traffic jam you can possibly imagine, or it's totally, it's like a broken down camper van. Like all those things, how am I feeling at the moment is one of the things there. So it's not about clearing your mind. It's about a misconception, if you like. It's not about clearing your mind. It's just about noticing how things are, even how my mood is, how my body's feeling. So there's that. There's about misconceptions there, and I haven't got time. People say I haven't got time, and that's why we're saying, okay, can we weave it in then? If you're walking, we've got Pontypool Park here, best, wonderful asset to Pontypool. I try and walk in it every day. If you just actually stop and listen and watch the leaves flutter in, maybe reach out and touch the bark of a tree, just bring your senses into play. Actually, somehow, your mind can settle. And that's mindfulness. It's noticing. It's using your senses. I'll put my teeth in a minute. It's just that noticing there. And I often find I go out into the park. People might think I'm nuts. I don't actually hug trees, but I do touch them on the way past. And I do stop and watch birds and leaves and sky and things like that. And sometimes for me, I think that creates a bit of space. And sometimes I'll get the solution to a problem. I wasn't actually thinking about it, but I'll have a really good idea. And the trick is remembering it because it creates a space. Because I think I'm going to mix my metaphors here, but I think our minds are a bit like a snow globe, the snow domes where you shake them and the snow goes.
Yeah.
I reckon we have about 70,000 thoughts a day. And tell me if you recognize this, Patrick. Sometimes it feels as if you're having them all at once.
Absolutely.
And when you're having all of those thoughts at once, can you see the picture at the back? No chance.
Nope.
The storm is going on. But actually, just think, if you think what happens when you hold that snow globe still. And the thoughts don't go away. Each of those bits of snow is a thought. They don't go anywhere. But maybe they settle a bit. And even a bit gives you a bit of space. Sometimes you'll have moments when they settle and they all settle down to the bottom. They haven't gone anywhere, they're still there. But they've given you a bit of headspace. They've given you a chance to see what's at the back, the wood for the trees, what's at the back of the snow globe, whatever, what is going on. That's what I meant about having perspective. Getting things into perspective, seeing what's what. Because when we are walking around with those 70,000 thoughts going on at the same time, not much makes sense. And that's heartfelt. That's what happens to me. So it's about giving us that space there.
How do people normally progress then in their mindfulness journey?
Getting the hang of it so that you can introduce it into your life is the first bit there. So doing it enough that you actually get the hang of it there. And there is a bit of research that says that if you actually do even 10 minutes of mindfulness practice, and I'm saying practice mindfulness, a mindful life, for 5 days a week for 8 weeks, then you're already starting to make changes to your brain. You're already starting to help your brain change from just being reactive, without even thinking about it, doing something. This is how the punch is thrown, isn't it? Just reacted. This person insulted me, react, instead of just thinking, actually, maybe there's a better way of dealing about this. So it's giving you that space. And it needn't be a physical punch. It can be a word, a reaction, saying something that actually you would want to take back a few seconds later, but you've said it in the heat of the moment. It's all of those things. So just actually practicing it enough so that it's handy, to do it, building it to your life, taking a pause. Talking of taking a pause, are you up for just taking a pause? And anyone who's listening to this, just for me to show you just what I mean, it's really quite simple. So however you're listening to this, and I know you're sitting down, Patrick, because I saw you at the beginning, but people might be sitting down, they might be out walking and doing other things. Just inviting you to just take a moment to stop. And you could be standing, sitting, lying, doesn't matter. Just take a moment, just take a pause, it won't be long. And just feel your feet on the floor. Letting your attention, and I like to think that my feet are almost glued to the floor. It's feeling gravity. We're being pulled towards the center of the earth and the floor is stopping us. Just feeling the feet on the floor, just that settling. And then maybe a little bit of a check-in. Okay, what's my thought traffic like today? Soaring across a viaduct with no other cars in sight, or am I in that traffic jam we talked about earlier? Or anything else? And then let your attention go to the rest of your body. And just notice how your body is. At this point, I usually notice my shoulders are really tense, ready to carry the weight of the world. Maybe just drop shoulders, just let go a bit. And then maybe just take notice of your breath, if that's comfortable for you, just for a few moments. Just notice the breath going in and out. And your chest rising and falling, and maybe even your tummy going in and out. All your insides being gently rocked by the breath. And that's it. Just maybe wriggle your fingers and toes just to let your body and mind know that that moment of mindfulness has passed. It can be as simple as that. And I bet your mind wandered while you were doing that. And
Oh
that's
yeah.
quite normal because it's like a puppy, isn't it? It's going to go. And the
Right.
only thing is, if you manage to bring it back to whatever I was talking about, if you manage to bring it back, that's the mindfulness practice. That's the training. Well, I was going to say, some of the time, your mind will have been where I invited it to go, some of the time. And that's fine. So tell me how you feel now, Patrick. You've done that.
Quite kind of chilled. But I suppose with mindfulness, it is all about practicing it. It's like any kind of training. If you want to run a marathon, for example, you're going to have to start somewhere. You have to start walking. So it's a case of not expecting things to be straight away and you're well into it. It will be something you learn over time, I suppose. So my question really then would be about the future for Mindfulness Wales. I want you to imagine right now that I'm a genie with 3 wishes. If I if I could grant 3 wishes for Mindfulness Wales, what would they be?
Oh, they would be that nurturing mindful communities becomes something that isn't a strapline for Mindfulness Wales, but is something we do in Wales. I love that word nurturing because it's got connotations of looking after and nourishing and caring for. And nurturing mindful communities then is about us all being kinder and more compassionate. Those are in our mission statement. But how can we use mindfulness to help Wales become a more compassionate, kinder and fairer society? And if nurturing mindful communities, if helping more people to be more compassionate and kinder and fairer to each other, that makes Wales a much nicer place for us all to be. So that's my wish for nurturing mindful communities to become something that belongs to all of us, not something that is, well, this is what Mindfulness Wales do. If there's something that you pick up as Torfaen Talks and any other group saying, just that we are all part of nurturing mindful communities, being nicer to each other.
If people want to get in touch with Mindfulness Wales to learn a little bit more, how can they do that?
They can go to our website, mindfulness-wales.org.
Oh, lovely. Liz from Mindfulness Wales, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us today.
Oh, thank you and good luck and keep me posted.
If you'd like to be involved in the podcast, please message or voice note on WhatsApp. Our number is 07851 138 610. This is a podcast from Torfaen Talks CIC.